Okay, this week we're going to be speaking about, for Shavuos, about this appropriate topic to discuss about waiting in between eating meat and eating milk, maybe between eating milk and eating meat. We know that after we eat meat, we need to wait a certain amount of hours before we eat milk. So on Shavuos, we definitely have there's the custom to eat dairy, so these halachos could come up. And also, after eating dairy, do you need to wait before eating meat? So the background to this discussion is based on a Gemara in Chulad that the Gemara says um, that the following was taught by Igra. That he taught the following is that he says you can eat chicken and then can eat cheese without even washing your hands. Just first eat chicken and then you eat cheese, and so you don't even need to wash your hands and you don't need to clean out your mouth. There's no problem. But then the Gemara says, so that's the first thing. Then the Gemara says, there's a story. The Gemara says, but Rabbi Yitzchak, he ate cheese and then he ate meat right after. And he first ate cheese and then he ate meat right after, and he didn't wash his hands. And Gemara asked, but we know from Igra that that's only okay by chicken. How do we know that that's okay by meat? The Gemara answers because it was in the daylight hours, so even meat after cheese is permissible. So that Gemara, if it didn't make any sense, that means you were following correctly, because the Gemara is very, very difficult to understand. First, it's talking about chicken and cheese, but it's talking about where you ate the chicken before the cheese. And then it's talking about the story of Rabbi Yitzchak, where he ate cheese and then he ate chicken and then he ate meat afterwards. Um, so that's a confusing Gemara. And the Gemara in the next stop says that Rav Chisda said, if you eat meat, you can't eat cheese after, but if you eat cheese, then you can eat meat after. That sounds more like something you know. And Mar Ukva says, he says, me, if you compare me to my father, I'm like vinegar to wine, because my father waited 24 hours after eating meat until he ate cheese. But I only wait from the Uda list to Uda, which means from meal to meal. So those are the Gemaras. But Gemaras, they're very confusing. They seem to be contradicting each other back and forth. So you're not really sure what to do. So this is where Tosfos comes in. And Tosfos says, yes, the Gemara, they're not comprehensible. You can't even read them correctly. The first Gemara is talking about where he ate chicken, and then he ate cheese, and said you could eat chicken and then cheese, and you don't need to even wash out your mouth. And the story that the Gemara asks is the story where he ate cheese and then he ate meat, meaning the order's reversed. And we know the order's pretty important, right? The big difference if you ate chicken or meat before eating cheese, or if you ate cheese before you ate the chicken or the meat. So Tosfos has three different answers, and those answers basically are the guidelines for how we paskin the halacha. That Tosfos' first answer, he says, is that the first thing that we taught that was taught by Igra, which is where you ate chicken and then you ate cheese afterwards. So really, that Gemara is not written correctly, and it meant to say that you ate the cheese before you ate the chicken, right? And then the Gemara makes much more sense, right? And then the Gemara says, right, that but there's a story with Rabbi Yitzchak where he ate cheese and then he ate meat afterwards, and he didn't wash his hands. And the Gemara says, but you only know about chicken, where you know about meat. Okay, so the Gemara makes perfect sense. So that's Tosfos' first answer. A great answer. Makes a lot of sense. Then Tosfos says, pretty astonishing answer. He says, no, it's not necessarily true that you need to wait after eating meat. He says you always thought your whole life after eating meat you need to wait before you eat dairy. Because yeah, that's one option. If you want to do that, you could wait. But I'll give you another choice. Just wash out your mouth, and then you could eat cheese also. Meaning you can eat meat, wash out your mouth, do netila, kinuach, and wipe your mouth, rinse it out. And then you can eat cheese. That's Tosfos' second answer. And then Tosfos later on he says third thing that he says in after he says Suda la Suda, meal to meal. So he says it's not really about waiting. Like waiting doesn't really matter. So the Gemara just means there needs to be from one meal to the next meal. So if you just bench and change the tablecloth, or you could be eating meat, bench, change tablecloth, then you go ahead and eat dairy. That's the third thing Tosfos says. So there's three answers by Tosfos, and that basically makes up the halacha. But we'll see that in regards to the halacha, so the Rishonim say different things. The Rambam and the Rashba and the Meiri and the Rush, they all say that based on these Gemaras, you need to wait 6 hours. And Shulchan Aruch says, yep, that's right, you need to wait 6 hours. And the Ramah says, yeah, v'chein nachol ma'asot means that's the proper thing to do is to wait 6 hours. And the Shach says it's anyone who has a reyach of Torah, meaning anyone, we all want to have a reyach of Torah, so anyone who has like a smell of Torah, so that's the right thing to do. You should wait 6 hours. But the Darkei Moshe in Os Zion, which is the Ramah, he says, but really the minhag is that you only need to wait 1 hour and do a washing of the mouth, right? Kinuach and adachav, wipe away your mouth and rinse it out, and you're okay. So that really sounds like he's meaning. So these are all based on the Tosfos, how you're understanding the Tosfos. That just the Ramah is basically understanding like the last version of Tosfos, that it's all about waiting from meal to meal, and he's just throwing in this extra hour. Not really sure where the hour comes in, but he's throwing in this extra hour and saying to rinse out your mouth. But the first answer of Tosfos, which is saying that like something which we always thought that it depends on is it that the Gemara the whole time was talking about where it's okay is where you had cheese, you had dairy, and then you had meat. So that's the one which the Shulchan Aruch is talking like, and he's saying you need to wait 6 hours. And the Ramah says you should do it, but he says also the minhag is to wait 1 hour. There's the Gra is only going quotes from the Zohar. The people like to quote this one. That where does the 1 hour come from? In the Ramah, he says that the Zohar says that you should never eat both foods together during one suda, or meaning during one meal, or in 1 hour. So that's the Zohar's idea that they should always wait 1 hour in between eating dairy or meat and dairy either way. So people quote that. But anyway, so that's the main out. So I mean that's really the basic halacha that it's either 6 hours or 1 hour plus rinsing out your mouth. And the Shulchan Aruch says explicitly you have to wait 6 hours. The Ramah says you could wait 1 hour, but the right thing to do is to wait 6 hours. So where does this idea of 3 hours come from, right? A lot of people wait 3 hours. Where does that come from? So that the Darkei Tshuva quote from the Sefer Mizmor David, he brings another approach. The German approach is to wait 3 hours based on this idea that the taste of meat doesn't stay in your mouth any longer during different times of the years. And so during the winter months, there would be less time from one meal to another meal. And so because the 6 hours come from what is like a normal from meal to meal. So the Darkei Tshuva says during the winter months, you're going to only wait 3 to 4 hours in between meal to meal. So you should only have to wait 3 hours the whole year long. But most people don't have that practice. Rishon Zalman says that the minhag is to wait 6 hours, but with the idea that some people wait 5 hours or 1 minute. So where does that come from? He said 6 hours, 1 hour. Now we have this idea of maybe 3 hours. What about 5 hours or 1 minute? So Shlomo Zalman said the minhag is to wait 6 hours, but anyone who waits for 6 hours is also fulfilled like the Rambam, because the Rambam said he didn't say 6 hours. The Rambam wrote kimo sheishos, which means like 6 hours. And like 6 hours, he says could mean like 5 hours or 1 minute. And that supposedly Rav Neventhal says that he passed in 5 hours and 1 minute. That's Rav Aaron Cutler supposedly has a shita that it was 5 hours and 1 minute. And Rav Avadia says also that when the Rambam says his shape shows means like 6 hours, that is because it was just before the world had clocks, so there's no way of knowing exactly what 6 hours is. And also the phrase of meat to uda from one meal to another meal indicates it's not like such a precise thing. Basically, what is telling you is that the halacha is to do around 6 hours, and if you don't know to the exact minute um, what is what is the 6 hour, then it's okay. That's what Ravadi is telling you. But there's a machlokas. So that's the halacha in regard to how many hours you should wait after eating meat before you eat dairy. So if you're Sephardi, it would seem like you should wait 6 hours, perhaps into the 6 hour, but definitely 6 hours. If you're Ashkenazi, the Ramav said 6 hours because there are those who do 1 hour, but the proper thing is 6 hours. And those who have German descent, some of them people have a minute to wait 3 hours. But what's the reason behind this? So this is basically two main opinions about the reason why you have to wait, or referring to a halachic hour or a clock hour. I don't know. I didn't see anything, but not sure if it's a halachic hour. I always thought that it was just a, a regular hour, but that is a good point. Maybe it should be a halachic hour. I don't know. I didn't see anything on that, but I'll let you know if I see something on that. Anyways, it's a good question. Very good question. So there are two reasons given essentially why you'd have to wait from eating meat before you eat dairy. It's the Rambam. It gives one reason, and Rashi gives a different answer. The Rambam says, it is probably the more famous answer, because we wait because basar bein shinayim, meat gets stuck in your teeth. And so even if you try to rip it, rinse it out, wipe it out of your mouth, it's not gonna come out. And so therefore you need to wait. And so they explain also from the Rambam that 1 to 6 hours later, we don't need to worry about the meat anymore because the food no longer is called like meat and it's been sufficiently digested by all the saliva in your mouth. Also, that the Minchas Aaron says that we know this applies to chicken too, because chicken and milk. First of all, let's just say chicken milk. That chicken and milk, the most people understand that chicken and milk is they're abanan, it's a rabbinical. To have chicken and milk and to cook them together would only be a rabbinical prohibition as opposed to meat and milk, which would be a biblical prohibition. So the question is, what about chicken and milk? Maybe chicken and milk should be less stringent, and maybe you don't need to wait after eating chicken. So Minchas Aaron says, we know it applies to chicken too, because the pasuk that talks about meat getting stuck in your mouth is talking about flav, and flav is meat that comes from a bird. That's the story in Bamidbar coming up, where the slav gets stuck in the teeth of Bnei Israel. So he says it even applies to chicken. Also, it would just seem like that way based on the Gemara that we talked about earlier. The Gemara talks about a case with chicken and then for cheese and chicken, right? According to the way Tosfos understands it, which seems like how we understand the Gemara. So that's reason number one. It's because it gets stuck in your teeth. Reason number two, Rashi's reason. He says because it's motei shuman. What does that mean? Literally means that it like brings out like this taste. So the way most understand is that meat has a very strong taste. It doesn't go away very easily. Seems like that Rashi means like meat has a strong aftertaste. The way when we were learning it in yeshiva, Rabbi Leibowitz described it as like, he said, you guys may not know this because you're still young. He said, but for me, sometimes you eat a hot dog and 6 hours later you're still feeling the hot dog and you're still you had a hot dog still 6 hours later because the taste is still there. That's how he described that. And sometimes so that's Rashi's idea though. When you eat meat, it stays for so long. So it's like the meat's still going to be there even 6 hours later. So there's some differences perhaps between Rashi and Rambam, meaning whether you hold it's because it's stuck in your teeth or because it's like a strong aftertaste. Like let's say you swallow without chewing, right? According to the Rambam, how can it get stuck in your teeth if you never chewed it? according to Rashi, there's taste there. Or um, what happens if you they say this as a possible one. Let's say you chew for let's say you chew on the food to make it softer for a baby, but you don't swallow it. According to the Rambam, it's going to be stuck in your teeth. For meat, you'd have to wait. According to Rashi, you never digested it, so you're not gonna taste it. So Torah says already that either way, whether it's Rashi or Rambam, we're stringent to follow both reasons, and either situation, we would say you would have to wait. This is always a big question. When do you start counting 6 hours from? Um, so the Aruch HaShulchan says you start counting from benching, not when you finish eating the meat. That's a big chumrah, especially if you go to these long meals. You finish eating your meat. You look at the clock. It's okay. It's 1:45. You do the math. Okay, I'm gonna be able to eat this time, and then the meal just drags on and on and on, and you only bench at 4:30. So when the Aruch HaShulchan says you have to start counting the clock starts when you bench. Kaf HaChaim disagrees. He says, no, you can start counting when you start the clock when you finish eating meat. Um, and Rabbi Leibowitz said in Shir, he said, we posting like that, Kaf HaChaim, you can start your count when you stop eating the meat. You don't need to wait until benching. Um, this is important to know, that in regard to children, the post can say that the child does not need to be stringent, does not need to keep this halacha of waiting from meat to milk. There's different debate, like how old are they when they need to start counting? Maybe they're 7, they need to start waiting, or some suggest below 3 you don't need to wait at all. Once you turn 3, you should wait an hour, gradually increase. But the reason is because it's not trace, so there's no problem for a child to eat trace. And at such a young age, there's no idea of teaching them. Um, and you're not feeding them an answer. So that's why posting say that this will not be an issue for children. Um, what if this came up? What if someone minhag was always to wait 3 hours? Because I don't know, that's what their parents did. Then they learn the halacha and they see that 3 hours is not written in the Shulchan Aruch. It's not written in the Ramah. If you open up the Shulchan Aruch, you're not going to find anyone who says 3 hours. You have to open the Darkei Tshuva. So what if they think, okay, my minhag was to always wait 3 hours, but I'm not German, I'm not Yaki. It doesn't seem like this is like a real minhag for me, learn the real halacha. So um, it would seem like they should have to be stringent and follow the obligation based on a real minhag, not one that is a minhag based on a a, a mistake. But they should certainly ask the Rav if that happens to them. What happens? This is a very, very common question. What happens? Okay, you ate meat, so now you need to wait 6 hours. So you ate meat at 1 o'clock. You need to wait until 7 until you eat dairy. And then you get to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and you forgot you ate meat. You start eating Twix bar, right? And you're like, oh shoot, I'm milchik. So that are you done? Is that it? Like, okay, I already messed up my waiting. So Sefer Kasher says you're not out. Stop eating. What you should stop eating enough. Like you're still basic. There's no out. Right? Just like we said about counting Omer, you missed a day. You're not out. There's no out. It's a musher for like sometimes we think we're out. You're not having kavana davening. You're like, okay, I guess this davening, this shach is not for me today. I'm out. So see, you're not out. You're never out. You keep going. Just because you ate milk, you're still faced. You should keep waiting for 6 hours. You made a mistake. It's okay. It happens. Um, so what are cases where you don't? What are cases? What percent? Oh, it's a question. What percentage of dairy makes it considered like it's a dairy food? No, I meant to say like a Twix bar, not a Cliff bar. Um, what percentage of dairy makes it considered like a dairy food? So there's a discussion about a tav shel shel basar, like where see if we get to. probably not. Um, but I'm not sure if it would be. I don't even think you would need a. It also depends if you ate really meat or if you ate couch or some butter. Okay, that's a little bit of a separate discussion. We'll see if we come back to that or see if we get there. So there's a few times where you don't need to wait at all, and then we'll talk about. I do want to get to waiting after eating milk, right? After eating dairy before you eat meat, do you need to wait? That's pretty common and going to be very relevant on Shavuos. But first, times where you don't need to wait. So, one who's sick, the basically tshuva quotes from the Chas and Sofer. If a person's even a little bit sick, you only need to wait 1 hour and just bench in between, make sure it's a different meal, and then you're okay. Um, there are Chashochan also in the Kaf they say if the doctor said you need to drink milk, then you can rely on the 1 hour idea and just rinse out your mouth well. Reb Avadia or the Yaakov Yosef, they quote the children of Reb Avadia that they say that from Reb Avadia says someone who's sick, pregnant, nursing, they only need to wait 1 hour. So it's not necessarily the common practice, but if there really is a need, it's good to know that there is some sort of heter for these people to wait 1 hour. Moshe said that if you eat something that requires 6 hours, you can take a vitamin. And then he keeps talking about if you eat hard cheese. We'll get to that in a second. What if you don't swallow? What if you just taste with your tongue? So the body itself says if you just taste with your tongue and you didn't actually swallow anything, you don't need to wait because neither reason applies, right? Because there's no aftertaste because you didn't swallow and nothing got in your teeth. But I don't know if you taste with your tongue, I feel like you swallow something. So I'm not really sure I understand that one entirely. Um, so now we'll just talk about if you're eating meat after eating dairy. So Gemara says that, right, just to review back to the beginning of the share, that we learned from Igra, the first thing that we taught is that chicken and milk, you don't need to wash your hands and mouth, but between meat and milk, you do need to wash your hands and mouth. And Tosfos brought different ways to explain it, but the first way Tosfos understood is that he's really talking about if a person wants to eat meat after eating cheese, he needs to wash his hands and mouth out, right? So it would seem that if I eat cheese and then I want to eat meat, that you should wash your hands out, means doing a wiping and a rinsing. The Shulchan Aruch, he passes like this as our Tosfos, and he says, after eating cheese, what should you do? You should wash your hands and wipe and rinse your mouth. Um, and the Rashba explains that because cheese is very soft, cheese is not going to get stuck in your teeth. So the Shulchan Aruch says also that you need to wipe your mouth out with like bread in the solid and like a solid food doesn't really mean necessarily bread, but a solid food. And then rinse your mouth out with water and wine. You also wash your hands, but if your hands are clean, you're okay. The Mishnah Brew says that you don't even need a bench, right? You can have milk, and then and you do all this, like you wipe out your mouth, you rinse it, right? And then you could have meat, and you said you don't even need a bench in between. So that would be seemingly to go against the Zohar's idea that you shouldn't have meat and milk in the same meal. And many are machmir like the Zohar. They don't pass in like this Mishnah Brewer. They're very machmir that in between you shouldn't have meat and milk as part of the same meal, even if you rinse your mouth out. But what people like to say is that after eating milk, you should wait 30 minutes or something like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour. So what is that? What does that come from? Is that a real thing? So the Ramah, he says, some people are stringent though, and they require 6 hours after eating cheese. But he says there are those who are lenient about it. So you can be lenient. But there's this very famous opinion of the Maharam in Rudenberg that he says one time he ate cheese, then he ate meat, but he found cheese in his mouth. So he took his own personal chumrah. He says, I'm gonna be stringent upon myself, and I'm gonna wait 6 hours after eating cheese before I eat dairy. So the Marshal, the Yam Shel Shomo, so he says that this is a unacceptable chumrah. He says, absolutely not. One is not allowed to be this stringent on this because it's against the Gemara. The Shach, he quotes this, but he rejects it. He says, no, you could be this stringent if you want because we see the Maharam did it. So the Ramah, again, he quotes the Minhag and says, ideally, and he says though that ideally the rinsing of your mouth and wiping out doesn't help you if you ate hard cheese. That you need to wait 6 hours even to eat chicken. But we don't protest if someone wants to be lenient. They would still need to rinse it out. But he says, but the best practice would to be stringent about by this, and to say that if you ate hard cheese, that you do need to wait 6 hours. So for soft cheeses, you just rinse out your mouth, wipe out your mouth. Um, but for hard cheese, there must says you need to be stringent about it. So there's now there's a debate, right? What is considered a hard cheese? That Shlomo Zalman said our cheeses today are not really hard cheeses, so you don't need to wait. But they report that Shlomo Zalman himself was stringent after he ate Swiss cheese. And Rav Elyashiv said also that it's not a bad farmer to wait 6 hours after eating hard cheeses. So it seems like nowadays that if you do have a genuine hard cheese, the proper practice is to wait 6 hours. But again, what is a hard cheese? So there's basically three schools of thought of what a hard cheese is. Hasidim say the Hasidic opinion, supposedly from the Volover Rebbe, says that it's based on a strict 6 month guideline. If it's less or more than 1 day, that makes all the difference. If you leave 3 month old cheese for 3 months, it's now hard cheese. And the date production of the cheese is the day that's put on the cheese. So it's basically 6 months. Um, that's the Hasidim. That's their practice. The OU's practice is that 6 months is the guideline. Without a cheese that's pungent, a sharp cheddar cheese will need 6 hours of waiting. And I think OU has a list of what they consider hard cheeses on their website probably. Because if they're really hard, sharp, pungent cheese, that would require 6 hours. Star K has a little bit of a different way of understanding it. It said it's a hard cheese and it crumbles when you slice it, that would be a hard cheese. And so that would really be Parmesan cheese. So Star K, according to Star K, if you have Parmesan cheese, which people like, then you need to wait 6 hours before eating meat, according to Star K. So that's basically the opinion there. So if you have, and then there's this opinion also of the Yad Yehuda that some people mention, some people don't like it, but they say if you have a hard cheese and then you cooked it so it softens or melts, then you don't need to wait. So many disagree, but some people like to bring this in and talk and like it. So just to summarize, if you're eating, so between dairy and meat, so it seemed like on a strict level thing that you rinse out your mouth, you wipe your mouth also, you both of those things, you can have meat, no problem. Some people, the next level of stringency would be to be stringent for the Zohar. The Zohar holds that never have to have meat and milk in the same meal, or even within 1 hour of each other. So some people take that they wait 1 hour after eating dairy. But that's based on the Zohar. It's not necessarily required. And then there's the idea also of the hard cheese, that if you eat a hard cheese, it depends again how you define the hard cheese, but if you eat a hard cheese, it would seem that you should be stringent and wait 6 hours before eating meat. If you want to know if your cheese is a hard cheese or not, then there are all these guidelines online. I'll use RK depending on how you want to treat those cheeses. Okay, does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Roey.